Most people can do most jobs. We tell people all the time, pick your career over your course, because a lot of people, personality is a manifestation of your behaviors, which is a manifestation of your interests, really. So understanding what your actual interests are gives you a better understanding. What, in the last 6 months, what have you felt in the flow of? What have you really enjoyed doing, the time passed?
Pivot in your confidence, career, and compensation with the 5-Minute Career Hack Podcast every Monday and Thursday. Now get ready for a special interview curated just for you. Welcome back to the 5-Minute Career Hack Podcast, where we help individuals and organizations pivot in their confidence, career, and compensation. Today, we have another incredible guest from all the way on the other side of the pond in Ireland, Stephen Shortt. This incredible guest we have for you today, I know is going to inspire. So if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, go ahead, do that now, because you want to be the first to be notified when we have incredible guests like Stephen on the show today. Welcome to the podcast, Stephen. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon for me. Good morning for you.
So Stephen, the first question I have for you, it ties right into what you've committed most of the last, 10, maybe 15 years to researching and developing. What's the biggest mistake? Maybe your whole life, right? But you'll tell us about that as we keep going.
Unfortunately, it's a bit more than 10 or 15 years, but we'll get into that later, yeah.
Right. What's the biggest mistake people make when choosing a career? What's the biggest mistake?
There's a couple of really common ones, but the one that probably encompasses everything is not actually thinking about what people want. We tell people all the time, pick your career over your course, because a lot of people get the advice, oh, you like maths, or you like history, you like politics, that's what you should study in college, with no regard to what career is going to be fulfilling and rewarding for you. Or you're getting advice, completely well-meaning advice from parents, from counselors, from teachers, or whatever, who just don't know what potential is out there. So being able to really understand what it is that you want, and then what there is a demand for, and then what you're good at. Putting those three things together, that's your ideal career for you.
So talk us through that step by step, because I think for the audience listening, our demographic is, it's broad, but the heaviest concentration is actually those individuals that have probably gotten to a place where they've decided what they're doing, what they potentially even went to school for, is not what they enjoy, not what they're passionate about. That's what we probably hear more than anything else. So talk us through it felt like a 3-pronged approach that you just described in the mistake area, but talk us through that a little bit more in depth.
Yeah. So, 80% of people can do 80% of the jobs that are out there. We're talking about the majority of the technical skills or the abilities, verbal, numerical, abstract reasoning, all of these things that it requires to do a job. Most people can do most jobs. It all comes down to interests. So if you're interested in something, you're going to spend time doing it. What's the quote of, spending your time doing something you don't love is stress. Spending time doing something you do love is passion. So when you're in the flow of your career, when you're in the flow, you're in work, you're switched on by working with people, and you like engaging with people, and you like having those conversations, you like having that water cooler chat, and just what was happening in sports or what was happening in the movies, and you're energized and you're going in, you're doing stuff. The late hours kind of drift away a little bit. You still want the work-life balance, but work-life balance means something different for you when you're really doing something that you're passionate about, that you believe in, and it's a part of who you are, as opposed to people who unfortunately are going into careers and either feeling trapped because I've studied these 4 years in college, or I did a second degree or a master's or something, and I just need to pay that back, or I need to just knuckle down and get through this or whatever. Or they're trapped in a career where they thought they were getting something, or they believed that the career was one thing, and it actually turns out to be another. Teaching is one that this happens a lot. There's a very romanticized version of teaching and inspiring kids and being a mentor, and because the people who get into teaching, a lot of them who get in for these reasons, they remember that amazing teacher who inspired them, and I want to do that for other people, and that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But the majority of teaching is fairly rote, is fairly repetitive, of teaching kids literally to read, to write, to do maths, to do presentation, and it doesn't give a lot of creativity. So there are people, and teachers in particular, who get burnt out because they have a romanticized version of what that career is, rather than an understanding of what that career really entails, and what makes their heart sing in the idea of that career is not being fed. So their interest is not aligned with the career as it actually stands. So understanding what it is that you want to do, what it is that you want to spend your time doing. The example I give I just had a conversation with my daughter's friend recently. He's like, I like politics. And I was saying to him, I actually think, from the little I know of you, I think that you would not enjoy politics. I think you might have an interest in politics, and that's fantastic. But actually, you're a communicator, you're a creative person. And I can see how some people will go, okay, you're a communicator, you should go into politics.
Right.
But the politicians that are on news shows and on radio shows and giving some speeches, that's not the majority of what they do. The majority of what they do is wheeler dealing, networking, trying to get stuff passed, and reading these tomes of details that go into the minutiae of it. So actually what I said to him is he should probably go and do marketing. He should probably go and do something that is creative, that allows him to use his voice.
Mm-hmm.
And then once he has that skill, he can then take that and use it with local politicians if he wants to, and help in local government, and support local politicians who are passionate about making those reform changes. But he can have the real drive and the real interest in his career, and then have his hobby interest secondary, and have that fulfilled by volunteering with local politics.
Got it. So how do I find that out, right? If I don't have you at my fingertips where I can call you up and ask, hey, what do you think I should be doing based upon what you know about me? How do I figure that out? I know there's like, personality tests and different things like that are out there, which I've taken so many of them over my career. But how do I figure this out?
Are you feeling stuck in your career? Are you ready to stop going through the motions? Are you ready to start living on purpose? Well, here's the thing. I'm going to say something very radical. Throw away your goals. Oh my gosh, right? Stop looking at them. Secure your spot today for Burn the Rulebook Career Transformation Lab, and get ready to take action and transform your future. Over 3 days, we'll help you prepare, position, and live on purpose in both your career and your life. We will help you find balance. Deep dive into strategies designed to help you stop playing by the rules that have held you back and take control of your future. We'll give you the tools to execute with confidence, so that you're not just talking about it and looking at it and hoping for change, you're making it happen.
So a great place to start, personality is important. Personality is really important. But if you take, let's say you're in marketing. Let's say you want to be in marketing. Then your personality, once you kind of figured, okay, I want to be in marketing, then your personality comes into play. So do I want to be in marketing in, I don't like the term introvert extrovert, but do I like being on the data side of it? Or do I like being on the people side of it, the creative side of it? Do I like being on the implementation side of it? So understanding where your interests lie, which is tied in with your personality. I mean, your personality is a manifestation of your behaviors, which is a manifestation of your interests, really. So understanding what your actual interests are gives you a better understanding of what, in the last 6 months, what have you felt in the flow of? What have you really enjoyed doing? The time passes. Now, I'm not talking about doom scrolling. There's only so many careers that you can get as a social media influencer or things like that.
Right.
But what is it about jobs that you've had in the past, or cultures you've been in the past, like company cultures you've been in the past, or a specific boss or a specific industry? What is it that really switched you on in that? And it doesn't necessarily have to be the career itself. It can be the actions within the career. So you could be saying, I really liked the community of people that I was in. I really liked the network and the interpersonal play of what was going on. But I mean, it was an insurance company. It just happened to be the culture of that insurance company that was really personable. So it's not that you should be an insurance salesperson or an insurance broker or something like that, but it's actually understanding what is the interest of that particular career. So you might go, I want something creative. I want something, maybe I want to be a podcast host where I get to talk to people and I get to find out different people's opinions. And there's so many things that you can do these days that didn't exist when I was growing up, to be able to make a living and to make a very decent living, finding something that you find fulfilling and rewarding.
So what I heard you say is that you've got to examine.
I'm Irish. I say a lot.
I heard you say you've got to examine and reflect on situations where you felt in the flow. In sports and basketball specifically, we call it being in the zone, right? When it's almost like you can't miss a shot, or you're just handling the ball, you're doing things, and it's just like the game is completely slowed down, and it's a euphoric place that you're in. And so you're talking about this flow state, or this energy that you feel, where it does feel maybe a little effortless, but you're enjoying that component of whatever it is you're doing. And then I also heard you say it's nuanced as well, which I'd love to talk a little bit more about, because while it may be working for an insurance company or a retailer or, a public institution or private institute, whatever it might be, that it could be nuanced within even that company and the role that you're currently in, right? That's what I heard?
Absolutely. So understanding, so the interest plays such an important part of what we want to spend our time doing. If you're not interested in, how many times have you been, you're running your own business, I know you absolutely love working with all of your clients, like I love working with all the people I get to work with. Yeah. But there are some parts of working in a company and you're like, God, can I not pay somebody to? Why can't AI do this for me?
Right.
So there's bits that I'm just not interested in, and it takes me 3 times as long as it takes somebody else who is more process oriented, who is interested in that process, for example. So understanding what are the things that I like doing, what are the things I don't like doing, but it's not I like talking to people. What is it about talking to people? Because there are people who you talk to who will suck the life and soul out of you because they just can't connect. So what is it about people that you enjoy talking about? What kind of environments do you like talking with people about? And then being able to really hone in on where there's overlap in those things, what I like doing, what I don't like doing, being able to see the flow. What can be very, very useful if you don't have a coach. You do career coaching. So if people who are watching, if they don't have a coach, or if they don't have, if they're just ideating at the moment before they want to sit down with a coach, having a different set of eyes look over some of this stuff that you're writing down. So even a friend or a colleague or something, people can start to see trends that we don't see ourselves. We don't see the wood for the trees. We don't see the nuance of that. But then you have somebody else who's looking at it with different eyes going, well, duh, obviously it's this and that.
Right.
Which could be incredibly helpful as well.
I think it's supremely valuable, and this is not coming from my bias as a coach in careers or a coach on the basketball court. But when you're in the midst of whatever you're doing, and more often than not, when someone comes to us for coaching, basketball or careers, there's something that they're not satisfied with. So they're not necessarily happy. They're not fulfilled. There's a lack of joy, happiness, whatever words you want to apply to it. And when you're in that state, it's very tough, to your point, to see the forest through the trees. So having someone objectively be able to take a look at that, which is why I believe if there's something you're trying to work on, the best thing you can do is get some form of accountability or a coach. So I've never worked out alone in my life for the most part. I've always been a part of sports teams. So when I got into my, mid 30s, it's just like, man, why can't I stay consistent in the gym? What's going on? Oh, because I'm used to doing things in community. So let me find a community. Found a workout buddy. Haven't had any trouble being consistent in 6 years. Right. And they're able to provide that feedback.
Absolutely. But I would say I'm similar-ish to you, that I haven't been able to work out at all.
At all, right? And that's where I would say a coach, a peer accountability, like you suggested, someone looking over those thoughts, those things that you're ideating about, for anyone that's listening or watching, is so incredibly helpful. I believe it's the secret key ingredient for human nature, is being able to have someone else in your village, your community, hire a coach, whatever that might be for you, to be able to take an objective look at what you're doing to help accelerate you to where you're trying to get to, versus just continuing to be in the ideation phase. because that can be, honestly, it can be very depressing because you're having these thoughts, but yet you're still having to go to work every day and deal with it and then not be happy. And then it starts to exacerbate the problem. And then you're getting even more unhappy because now I'm starting to have these thoughts about what I really want to do. And then I got to go to work. And then I got to deal with this person, or I got to be on this project that I really don't want to be on. That's frustrating for me and I don't enjoy the work. Or I'm not in my zone of genius, being able to express myself the way I want to in a specific role. So I think those points from examination, reflection, and then having someone help you with that ideation, however you choose to go about it, is so critical. So tell us about how you came up, or how you've researched most of your life to understand this and bring about what the world knows or soon to know. I know it's prevalent in the UK, but it's headed over to the US. But tell us about Career Fit and the process that led you to building out this software.
Yeah, so just what really struck me just as you were sharing your example there, I think it's really important to, it is getting those thoughts out of your head as well. When you're in that negative space, when you're in that difficult, dark place, even having a coach or somebody just to vent on can free up that mind space for you, because then when you go into work and Brenda has done something again that's annoying you,
right,
it is not as insurmountable as it was before you had those conversations. So I think it's super
incredible
important.
Incredible point.
And Brenda's not that bad, really.
Right.
So Career Fit started. My father's the occupational psychologist. He's been doing career guidance for about 45 years now. We sit on both sides of the table. So we're both career guidance counselors and we're selection experts, where we use personality profiles and aptitudes to be able to help companies find the right people for their roles. So we know what it takes to do well on both sides of the equation. One thing that my father noticed a good 15, 20 years ago was that a lot of the assessments that are out there kind of completely ignore the lower end of both the ability scale and perhaps the educational, socioeconomic, whatever scale. If you're in the lower kind of 40 percentile, you get ignored by a lot of these things because people just don't know how to deal with them. So it started as an assessment and a tool to be able to help people who are more practically minded get some direction and get some way of finding themselves and finding what they should be doing. We actually trialed it in a lot of vocational colleges and schools. It was a pen and paper. It was quite not basic, but it was simplistic a little bit. We also trialed it in prisons, for example, for people who were looking to do something when they got out that they might not have had a good education to be able to go to college or whatever. And then once we had that, and that was getting a lot of attention in Ireland and the UK and on a European basis, we then created a digital version where we were able to take, in the original version, we were able to take your overall scores, your verbal, numerical, and abstract reasoning, which is known as your general ability. And that's how you can really tell in 98% of careers. Obviously, if you want to be a soccer star or you want to be a singer, we don't have a written test that you can take to let us know if you're any good at that. But we only had the verbal scores, numerical scores, abstract reasoning scores, and then we had the interest inventory, which was the broad career families. And then you would take the list of the careers within that family, and then you would start to hone it down. And that still was a fantastic starting point for people, but it also meant that you still had an awful lot of work to do and a lot of digging to find something. Then when we started to do the assessment online, we were able to get far more nuance. So now we can not just look at your overall families of careers, we can look at the individual answers you've given to the interest inventory. So you might have an overall thing in communications, but actually in business is where you have the most nuanced interest. So the careers are given to you in a more businessy sense with communications as part of it. So we're able to get in really, really surgically into what are the top careers for you. We have a database of 1,272 careers, I think it is.
Okay.
And we map your answers, your abilities, and your interests against that to give you the top 16. With those 16 careers, we give you a description of that career so you really understand what it is. And again, not the romanticized version, what's actually involved in it. And then we tell you what kinds of courses, like the third level courses, lead to those careers. And then in Ireland, anyway, we give the subjects, so the high school subjects that you should be taking in order to qualify to get into those courses. We haven't done that for the US yet. And there are careers in the US that we've been researching that don't exist in Ireland. So we have we've identified between 70 and 110 careers, like federal jobs, that just don't exist in Ireland and the UK. The gunsmith, ammo maker, like stuff like this doesn't exist in Ireland. So we have to research those careers to see what's the ideal makeup for that and then add them in. But we are able to build in any career. Like we added, I think it was 9 careers to our database this year that didn't exist before. Telemedicine, we had drone operator. There was another extension of drone operator. So we're constantly adding to it to be able to make sure that we're looking at the future of work and what are the careers that people are going to be able to get into in the future.
So in heavy research into the jobs, it sounds like the actual roles themselves, as well as abilities of an individual that would, and then how to match those two, right? And then you said abilities, I believe it was in experiences or education possibly in there as well.
So in the report, we give people, you're talking about how we match them?
Yeah, or just the information that you would take from the individual to them.
The verbal, numerical, and abstract reasoning, which in psychometric terms is known as general ability. So it's a triangle of verbal, numerical, and abstract reasoning to give us a real overview of what that person's abilities are. For example, let's say you have a big interest in numbers and you like numbers, and the interest inventory shows that you have a real passion for numbers. If your numerical abilities are kind of average, which obviously is the norm, you might get something like accountant or accounts receivable or something like that that is challenging for you, but also doable for you. But if your numeracy skills are really high, you might get like CFO, a chief financial officer for a large organization, because you're going to be dealing with a lot more complicated numbers. But in order to be a CFO or in order to be a financial director or something like that, you also need to have very good communicative skills. So you need to have high verbal skills as well. So we take all of that nuance to see what's actually involved in that level of each of the careers to be able to give you careers that are aspirational, a bit of a stretch, some of them, because we don't want people to just go, oh, well, that's my lot, and that's what I'm doing forever. But here's a bit of an aspirational, and this is your starting point. There's no stopping you. Like once you go past that, you can build your abilities, you can practice your verbal skills, you can practice your numerical skills, and you can improve all these things. So this is just to get you started on the right path.
Awesome. So how long would it take someone to do the total career fit assessment, an individual that is?
So it takes a maximum of 2 hours. So it's not a BuzzFeed, what unicorn are you? It's a proper psychometric assessment. It does take time. You don't have to do it in one sitting. You can do it over a course of a number of days. The timer is built into it. So you can do them all on your phone if you want. The only advice that we always give people is the abstract reasoning one, which has a lot of patterns and visual cues and things like that. Better to do that on a slightly bigger screen, just to give yourself the best chance possible. But it's fully mobile responsive. People can do it on their phone. We've had people doing it on their commute home from work, and giving us feedback saying that it worked perfectly. So yeah, it takes about 2 hours in total.
So
it takes a maximum of 2 hours.
Max of 2. So this is, and I'll use like Berkman or Myers-Briggs, or this is like, I'm going to find out a little bit about who I am and what I like, but I'm also going to find out how to apply that to a career. Is that a great way to kind of summarize for those listening? Because this is the first I've heard of something quite like this that's this robust.
So with things like Myers-Briggs, Myers-Briggs is a personality indicator. It's a test to get you to Jungian types, which is a great way to understand communication. It's a great way to understand a little bit about yourself. Now, personally, I have a bit of an issue with Myers-Briggs because it's so binary. So if you're the introvert extrovert, for example, if you're 49-51 and then the next day you're 52-48 or whatever, you go from I to E. Like there's no nuance
quickly
in it. Yeah, so you can get it completely different because all they look at is the extremes. That's just my thing. That it should be more.
It makes sense.
Actually, it can be a very useful tool to quickly understand, to get a quick understanding. It's a very simple tool. Disc is the same, or colors. Very, very quick tool to be able to understand people in a pinch. For anything for nuance, I mean, even I think Myers-Briggs would say, don't use this for selection, for example, because it's
Right.
not
Absolutely.
detailed. So what we do is we're much more nuanced because we have so many. In the interest inventory alone, I think it's 194 questions. Quick fire, rank this from 0 to 6. So the permutations are astronomical. But we get that nuance to be able to understand the level of interest in each of these individual careers. So yes, it doesn't give you personality. There is personality almost by default in an interest inventory. There is an element of personality that exists in interest inventories, but we are looking specifically at what are the careers that you're interested in and what are the careers you're able to do, because we have this thing. This is my personal mantra, and it's what all of our businesses do. We're on a mission to make the world a better place with happy people in fulfilling, rewarding careers. So everything we do is about aiming towards that.
Yeah, that's so important because we spend more time, maybe with the exception of sleeping and eating, depending upon who you are, at work than doing any other thing in life. So being happy with that is super important. And I find that, again, the demographic that consumes our content the most and reaches out to us the most for coaching isn't happy. So tell us a little bit about like someone's, and I want to hear from both sides. So maybe we'll start with the individual side, someone's that's gone through the career fit assessment and then gone on into this career path or journey and what that's looked like on the tail end.
So, I mean, we've had thousands of people go through it now, and had thousands of people giving feedback and everything else. When we were testing it, the new version, we rebuilt it over COVID because we had time. We had nothing else to do. So when we were retesting it, my wife did it, and my wife is a teacher. She's Spanish, and she's a Spanish teacher here in Ireland. And when she did it, she didn't get teacher as one of her careers. And I've actually had 4 different friends whose kids are teachers or studying to be teachers who didn't get teacher as one of their careers because of that non-romanticized version of the questions. But my wife did get a handful of careers that she had never heard of. She's been teaching for, I won't tell you how long she's been teaching, because if she hears it,
then she'll be upset, right? We won't do that.
But she didn't get a career, and she got a handful of careers. And one of them was a hospital play specialist. And she read it and she went, what is that? And she read the description of it and went, that is, how do I do that?
Right.
So my kids are in her school. So we have lower fees because she's a teacher in the school. So she's not allowed to change her career until the kids have finished school. But
financially.
Yeah. So, but this is when she saw that and she read it. I mean, for me, that's the most amazing feeling when people read a report, because it's great when people read a report and they go, yeah, I'd really thought about that, or yeah, I've done that and I'd love to go back to it. And it's a kind of a reinforcement for them and a clarification for them. And I love that. But what I love is when we get the reaction of, I had no idea I could do that.
Right.
This is amazing. This is what I want to do. And for me, that's magic. We've had other ones where we had a guy who's, he grew up in a logistics company, a trucking and movement company, and he was good at it. He enjoyed it, but it wasn't his passion. He was really interested in, and as it came up in the report, Formula One executive was one of the careers, and he loves Formula One. He's a huge car racing fan. So we had a bit of a feedback session, and he kind of realized as we were pulling together 1 or 2 of the careers, he thought, oh my God, all of these Formula One places, they have a logistics company that moves them from place to place. I can go do that.
That's what I want. I want.
Yeah. And that's what he's doing now. He started off fairly junior, but he's the last I heard, he's doing really well.
That's incredible. So I'm sure for you, the joy is when there's this, like, almost like the world opens up in a new way for someone, right? I could absolutely see that. Because there's this light bulb that kind of goes off for them physiologically, and you can see that reaction. So I imagine that's extremely rewarding. But also to the person that, may just be in the wrong environment, that needs the confirmation that I'm doing what I'm truly interested and passionate about, but maybe I'm in the wrong environment. and I need to, instead of changing totally what I'm doing, maybe I need to change my environment or where I'm working or the company I'm, whatever that might be, to find more joy. So it would help in that way too, because I've seen people try to change the wrong variable as well.
Correct.
Too many times. Too many
So
times.
we
You
would
say
give, I would give the example of a solicitor, a lawyer here in Ireland, who is in one law firm, who's into the corporate world, who's in very staid, very risk averse, very hierarchical, very buttoned down kind of place. And they're an exceptional lawyer, they're an exceptional solicitor, but they don't like it, and they feel that they're being stymied and they don't like it. So instead of not being a lawyer and going off and doing something else and retraining, actually being a lawyer is what you're good at. Why not change the culture of the environment? So go work in a more entrepreneurial friendly type place, or family law, something like that, which can give you a breath of fresh air and a reinvigoration of what you love doing and what you're good at and what you're interested in doing.
Right. And I imagine for coaches like myself and my career strategists like myself and my co-founders, it'd be a helpful tool, because oftentimes we're spending that time one-on-one with the individual client trying to pinpoint, is it the work, the work that you're doing, the people you're doing it with, the organizational culture, values, or something doesn't like, what is it that you're unhappy with? Because one of the things that I really refuse to do is to tell someone to just jump ship to go to the next thing and not really understand that, because that's what most people want to do. I just need to get out of here, right? Because it's gotten to this point and I just want to move on. I want to get out of here. But the problem you might be taking the problem with you, depending upon what the situation is.
So with career coaches, and what we work with a lot are schools here in Ireland that have career guidance counselors in schools. The career guidance counselors in schools are now not just career guidance counselors, they're counselors in general, which means they're dealing with mental health stuff, they're dealing with all kinds of other things that, which means that they get such little time to focus on the careers of the students. And in that short amount of time, they have to do exactly what you just described, and being able to dig into, well, what about this, and exploring this idea and exploring that idea. Whereas if they use something like Career Fit, all of that heavy lifting and that pulling together of information and data is done. So you can have much more in-depth conversations with that individual to go, here are 16 careers. What are the ones, do any of these leap out at you? And they'll go, oh, this one and that one and this one. Or they might go, there's too many of them that I really like. And then you start whittling them down. Okay, which is number 16 we can get rid of, which is number 15 we can get rid of. But it means that you're spending your time, instead of juggling norm tables, instead of looking at reports and courses and personality and trying to juggle whether that goes together, it's here, and you can spend your time having much more meaningful, deeper conversations with people that are, in my view, what coaches want to be doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If I could have everyone come to a session, a one-on-one session, and we already know like all of these things, it'd probably be no different than someone that is a counselor on the mental health side. If they could just come to them with, okay, these are the true things that are wrong, not the surface level symptoms or the things that you're exhibiting right now, but let's get to that layer of whenever this trauma happened to you at whatever point in your life and you just came with that. Yeah, things would move a lot faster. Now, I may cut down on fees, which I'm okay with, but at the same
more people.
And you're getting to the solution, which, like you mentioned, there's joy and gratification for the individual, like you have with Career Fit, when you see that light bulb go off. If we can get to the light bulb in the first 10 minutes and send you on your way, I'm happy as a coach, because it gets you on that path and you're happier. And with your mission as a company to make the world a better place through this software, and being able to be in the role and be fulfilling the purpose that I believe everybody was placed on earth to be here for, is incredible. And I'd rather help people get to that as fast as they can. But there's been a billion books, probably half the books behind me that are written.
I got mine all over there.
Right? These books were written to solve some of these problems. And again, we've got all these books, but it's still a process. So that's why when I first learned about Career Fit, I was just so intrigued and interested in how this could help accelerate conversations for myself, but also to get to people earlier, and to hear that you're working primarily with I guess, kind of the high school level, as well as some on the collegiate level. I think that's incredible because I think if you can get some of this earlier, then by the time you potentially would be that age that's coming to me from a client standpoint, we're not dealing with nearly as many people, which I'm okay with, to be honest. I'm perfectly okay with.
The other thing that we've found, and we get feedback from teachers about this, is especially younger people who are a little bit lost, who are a little bit disillusioned, or not depressed. It's not depressed, but it's an overwhelming sense of, I could do anything, but I have no idea what I want to do.
Right.
If they have that clarity and they narrowed down to like 3 or 4 options, and especially now that we have, what are the subjects that you should be looking at? What are the courses you should be looking at to get into that career? Because this, and this, it gives the students such clarity that they now are able to go, okay, now I understand why I have to sit through calculus, because I need to get the maths to be able to do that. And like, it gives them a clarity and a focus to re-energize themselves in school, because they're not just wading through, not conceptually able to understand, why am I doing this, or what do I want to do? I don't want to do anything. I don't know what I want to do, so I don't want to do anything. So we can give that clarity to people, which for me is, as a father of 2 teenagers, and just when you were talking about people coming with a book of all of their answers, I wish they had them for teenagers too.
Right.
So I think that's something that's also really important about what we're doing.
Excellent. And so I know you've done some tests here in the U.S. on some with your software. Tell us a little bit about that, because I'm interested in seeing this come to the U.S. in a more prevalent way.
Yeah, so we have trialed it. Now it has the Irish version of the courses, for example. We have the generic titles now of courses as opposed to specific courses, and the subjects obviously won't correlate. We need to make sure we do that that bridging exercise between the US curriculum, and that's going to be tricky because what I'm learning about the States is that there's federal, there's state, and then there's county different. So we need to be able to figure that out without losing our minds.
Right.
But we've had it, and we had some people in I don't want to mention a college or anything else, but we had a trial in a college and at a university in the US, and the counselors came back, and I remember them saying, I'm not sure this works, because he has this person in particular had a list of careers that were in kind of business and engineering, and that's what he's studying, and then a list of other stuff. I can't remember what it was. I think it was more in the creative side of things, not marketing, but like artistic things.
Right.
And they were going, these are so different. I mean, it can't be possible. I said, well, this is what he said he was interested in. These are the things that he said. So they went and they sat down with the student, and they showed it to him. And he said, yeah, I mean, I'm doing the engineering and the business because he was, I think, first generation or second generation immigrant or something like that. He was like, he was taking the safe option to be able to do what he needed to do to pay bills and to get himself set up. And he said, this is what I'm doing as a safe option, and I'm interested in this. But actually, if I could do anything I would love to do, it's these careers, but they're not as stable right now. So the system was able to pick up on the things that he really wanted to do. And for me, sometimes going with the safe option is what you need to do, but understanding that maybe we can take a bit of a risk and do something that we really enjoy doing, and there will be a way of figuring out how we can make money out of that, how we can monetize that, either as an employee, as an employer, as an entrepreneur or something, to be able to do something that you're passionate about. That's, I think, the world that we're going to be living in from 2025 onwards.
As I was reading some data points around Gen Z specifically, there was definitely something in the data that showed that, similar to how maybe Gen X would have 12 to 15 jobs at different corporations, that Gen Z would go from organization to entrepreneur to pop-up shop to organization, and it would be a fluid thing, and sometimes at the same time was how it was described. And that speaks to that, how this person could have the best of both potentially.
So I think so. I one of my working title is a future work strategist. I think there is going to be a huge shift in how work is done, and I think there are going to be fewer. We have these multi-billion huge 10, 12, 20,000 strong companies. And there are lots and lots of them, but I actually see it going less and less. And I think that AI is going to help people form very niche, small companies, whether that's entrepreneurial or like a 10, 20 person company, to be able to build stuff, to be able to do business with other people and integrate and form these markets and form these connections that don't really exist at the moment, that on the scale that I think technology will allow us to do it. And while I don't think everybody should be an entrepreneur, I don't think it's for everybody. I think that people who traditionally were in the smaller companies, because family business as a term didn't exist until about 40 years ago, until some of these, maybe 60 years ago now, didn't exist before, because basically all businesses were family business until they started to get enormous. And then the term family business was used as a way of denoting actually we're nice and friendly and not some cold-hearted, faceless organization.
Correct.
So, but now it's going to move back to that, because I think people in general are happier in buying into the purpose, buying into the idea. A friend of mine who's an entrepreneurial coach, he talks about problem 25. Like once you get past 25 people, it's very difficult to maintain the same culture within an organization, because you don't know everybody. Once you get past 25, you don't have the same. I'm seeing in the offices, and I've seen John, I've seen Mary, or I'm on a Zoom call with Joanne or whatever. Once you get past that, we lose that tribe mentality. And I think we as humans, we're built that way. So having smaller companies that are able to do business with each other, being able to support and integrate and cross promote and all the rest of it, I think that's going to be a real future for the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas.
Which is very interesting take, because I've, been studying this for some time now, and I don't know that I thought about the organizational structure shifting to more boutique style organizations than conglomerates. And while there's been a extreme appetite from probably the 70s, 80s on to go public as a company on the exchange, maybe that slows down. I don't know. I think it's very interesting. I'll be digging, because that's the first time someone's actually mentioned that as it relates to the future of work. That's a very interesting take.
I have been involved in this thing called the Global Student Entrepreneur Awards for a couple of years for university students who own and operate their own businesses. It's a global competition. It's a phenomenal event, gsea.org, if you're interested in having a look at it. And for the last couple of years, there's been an awful lot of young, I say young, they're in college, like they're not babies. Right. But they're building like AI tools and AI solutions, and they have really small teams that are nimble and really aligned in what they want to do. And they don't need to have this huge manpower force to be able to accomplish stuff. And I remember sitting in one of the judging panels, and we had a young guy who was talking about Web3 and how blockchain was going to change things and NFTs and all the rest of it. Now, because of my job, I have probably more of an understanding of that world, because I need to understand what's coming down the road. But some of the other guys that were beside me were looking at it, is this guy speaking double Dutch? What language is this kid speaking?
Right.
And actually, when you dig into what decentralization can do for finance and ownership, and when you talk about going public was the way to do it, I mean, there was a lot of hype about NFTs, but actually the technology behind NFTs and blockchain will allow some really interesting things to happen in business in the future. Things just need to catch up a little bit.
Right. Absolutely. I do think there's so much yet to be discovered as far as use cases, especially as it relates to the blockchain. So, which we could dive into that topic fully, but I don't want to steer too far away.
To be fair now, if we dive deep into that, I might run out of air pretty soon. But I can swim around a little bit in it.
Right. I can, float just a little bit, but I'm not going deep sea diving, that's for sure. But I do believe that there's so much to be said for what's happening in that space. And I do think it'll be an important part of what the future of work looks like in some way, shape, or form. And maybe we don't even know what that looks like today. But then we'll look back and say, when blockchain started, or when Web 3.0 started, then it morphed, and then all of a sudden it had all these tentacles that led to this in the workspace. But I think there's something to be said also for your take on the individuals that were working on these different projects in small groups, allowing that level of community and intimacy to maintain itself. And that is a huge desire. And I think that's been accelerated with the, the global shutdown with COVID. I think accelerated this desire for community in a way that we have probably not seen in some time. So being disconnected then pushed us to want to be more connected in a virtual way, but then also in an in-person way as well.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I've really been interested in is how these digital nomads are growing in popularity. So before COVID, there were digital nomads. It was a thing. It wasn't hugely common, but what COVID really showed us is actually the amount of jobs that can be done remotely. You don't have to be sitting at the same boring cubicle. You can be wherever you want. And countries like Barbados, for example, are leading the way in this, where they have digital nomad visas. So if you're a digital nomad, if you're working for a company in Europe, if you're working in wherever you are in the world, you can apply for a 1-year digital nomad visa in Barbados. I think Barbados or the Bahamas. I think it's Barbados, where they will grant you a visa to work there without paying local taxes. You'll still be technically employed in your home country, paying your home taxes, paying all that, because what they want is for people to be coming and spending money locally in the community. They don't necessarily need you to be going through the whole process of setting up the paperwork, opening a bank account and all the rest of it. Because we're such a digital world now, we don't need to do that if we're cross-border. So you can go to Bali, for example, for 6 months, and you can go to a co-working space, and you can be with other people from around the world who are marketeers, who are digital people, who are these digital nomads, who are living this life of adventure, moving away from the metropolis that we'd all built, because we all came in the Industrial Revolution into these cities for these concentrations of work. Now we're able to go and have a much better quality of life, so long as we're able to still be connected. And I think that's going to be really, really important as well.
I think that's so interesting. And I would continue to have this conversation with you forever and ever, because there's just so many pieces to it, because we're talking about all the careers and we're talking about all parts of the world at the same time. But for the audience, if they wanted to learn more about Career Fit, if they're in the US or UK, Europe, wherever they're listening from, what's the best way for someone to learn more about Career Fit and what you're doing, what you and your family are doing with it?
Easiest thing is go to careerfit.com. All one word, CAREERFIT, Career Fit. You get all the information on the report. If you want to look at this other guide that I wrote recently on why you hate your job, or why it might be depressing for you, whyouhateyourjob.com. It's a simple page of the top 5 reasons that people hate their job and the things they can do about it. But
that's the best way.
They're the 2 easiest places.
Awesome. Well, I'm of course very interested, and I'm sure some of my fellow coaching friends are probably interested in learning more about this. So I know we'll be continuing to have conversations about Career Fit and the work that you're doing, and also how we can support some of that research to help bring this to the U.S. So I appreciate you taking the time, sharing with our audience today. I know they've been blessed to understand, whether they're in the right career or not, that they've gotten some practical tips from you today on how to navigate that, depending upon what point they're at in their career. So I appreciate you taking the time in your evening to do that with us today. Thanks so much for being here with us today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And as I always end every podcast, I want to thank you all for tapping in. If you really enjoyed this episode, do yourself and the people around you a favor and share it with them. And also make sure you're subscribed. Hit that subscribe button or that follow button if you're listening to us on all streaming platforms. And until next time, I love you. I truly hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed doing it for you. However, it doesn't have to end there. Come on over to our Facebook group community right now. You're going to get exclusive content that we weren't able to include in this episode, as well as past episodes. We've got challenges, we've got research, we've got lives, you name it, all for you in bite-sized chunks so that you can continue this development journey. Go ahead, click the link right now in the description show notes, and we'll see you there.